Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. A little bit of housekeeping items to get to before we get started. We've got a great group of classrooms joining us from different locations around North America. And anybody who is watching on YouTube, feel free to send in some questions via the live YouTube chat sidebar, and we'll get to some of those. And we always love to see your pictures, whether you're watching live or on YouTube. Send in your pictures to us so we can see you enjoying today's hangout. So I'm very excited today to be joined by Renata Rojas. She began diving in Cozumel at the age of 12. And since then, her worldwide diving experience have included places like the Galapagos, cage diving with great whites off of Mexico, the wrecks of Belle Island in Newfoundland, cave diving in caves in Florida, Mexico, and Belize. She's scheduled to take part in an expedition to the Titanic in May of 2018 to document the shipwreck. And it'll be the first submersible expedition after 12 years. She's also a member of the Explorers Club and the president of the New York City Sea Gypsies. So Renata, it's so great to have you joining in with us today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here with you guys.
All right, well, we have a great group of classrooms joining us, and we're going to jump to some of their questions shortly. But before that, I'd like to ask you a few questions, talk a little bit about some of the expeditions you've been on and some of the things you've done in the past. How does that sound?
Perfect.
All right. Well, first of all, diving since 12, how did that come to be?
Well, my father was an instructor diving in classes in Mexico, and I would follow him around everywhere he went, including in classes. And one day he decided that I was going to be underwater. So I had my class and started diving when I was young.
All right. And I know from experience, Cozumel is a pretty amazing place, the drift diving and the reefs there.
It is. It's Mexico in general. It's a beautiful place to dive. Every coast, not only Cozumel, Cabo San Lucas, the Yucatan Peninsula, it's beautiful. Anywhere you go there, it's gorgeous.
Okay, awesome. So looking at some of the dives you've done around the world, you've been to some pretty incredible places. Is there anywhere that really stands out in your mind, somewhere that really kind of captivated you or you're excited to go back again?
For me, it's, again, my background for the kids is I'm from Mexico, and Mexico is really the place to go diving. You can find everything you find worldwide. You find caves, you find big animals, you find whales, mantas, little fish, big fish, seals, sea lions, everything that you can possibly imagine. Shipwrecks, cold water, warm water. So it's a beautiful place to go diving, whether it's in the East Coast or the West Coast of Mexico.
All right. And so one that definitely catches my eye is the cage diving with the great whites. What was that experience like?
Oh, that is definitely one to stand out. It was fantastic. Great whites are beautiful animals. Their whites are not mean. You're not their food, so they don't want to eat you, as people tend to think. They move very gracefully in the water, and they're very magnificent. They're just beautiful, beautiful creatures. To be in a cage and watch them go by is just an amazing experience to have them really close by. They move a lot slower than you would think. And yes, they do have a lot of teeth, but they're really not interested in you.
Okay. So last summer, I spent some time in the Galapagos, and I noticed that's one of the areas you've been diving. Where were you in the Galapagos?
I went to Darwin. I was in a liveaboard, and that was the ultimate destination, Darwin, the arch, the famous arch that we see. We were in different islands, and the different islands have different ecosystems and different animals. There is a lot of hammerhead sharks in Galapagos. There's a lot of seals, sea lions. You can play with them. There's penguins, which was amazing. Mantas, beautiful place again. Very volcanic water, so there's really a lot of corals. It's really just rocky formations and a lot of animals. It's very rich in its water, and the animals are very different too.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the Galapagos, about 800 to kind of in that range miles off the coast of Ecuador, right on the equator. And to the north, there's two islands, Wolf and Darwin, and they're only way to get there to do some diving is a liveaboard, like Renata did. And it's one of the places you can go to see schooling hammerheads. And I wonder if you were lucky enough to experience that.
Definitely. School of hammerheads, school of fish, big schools of fish that are packed in a little package, and you just follow them along. Sea lions would come and play with you in your face. The mantas would also ride on top of you. There's a lot of current, but being given where it is, but it's really where life initiated in this earth pretty much, and there's a lot of nutrients in the water which attracts a lot of the fish, and there's animals everywhere and fish everywhere.
Okay, so that's some warm water diving, and I know you do some cold water diving as well, and that you've worked with an expedition called the Sedna Epic.
Correct. Sedna Epic is 10 women, one team, who's trying to snorkel the Northwest Passage to create awareness for global climate change. And that requires us to be snorkeling in ice, in bits of ice. And we wear dry suits, which are basically keep you dry and warm, so you're not cold. And the team snorkels in a relay team, one woman in, one woman out. And you basically have to navigate through the icebergs in order to go in a straight line. And it's just amazing to be doing that for create awareness of global climate change. We actually crossed from Canada to Greenland 2 years ago. It's called the Davis Strait, and we actually did our snorkel relays in that strait. It's really in the middle of the ocean from Canada to Greenland. Took us about a week.
All right, so warm water, cold water, fresh or salt, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, it really doesn't matter. If you're dressed correctly, it really doesn't matter where you go.
Okay, and so that brings me to enclosed environments, diving in cave environments. What got you interested in doing dives like that?
Well, my mentor, Jill Heinert, which all of you must know, is a very inspiring person. She's the one that inspired me to go into the veins of Mother Earth, as she calls it. It's really like going to the moon. It's going to a place where nobody really has access to without tanks. And it's just it's almost like being in somebody's body with a tube of lava, and you're swimming through the water. It's amazing to be in a place like this. It's an experience that not everybody can have. Highly recommended for everybody, as long as you get trained.
That's an excellent point. You definitely want to be very well trained before you dive in environments like that. Yeah. What's the deepest underground you've been?
The deepest underground, well,
or the furthest into a system?
System has been the pit in Mexico. It's Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula also has a lot of caves. The cave goes down all the way down to 400 feet. I didn't go to 400 feet myself. I really just kept it to the cavern, but that's the deepest I've done in a system.
Okay. So what you have planned for 2018 is a little bit different than any of the diving you've ever done in the past.
Completely different, yes. All
right. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're planning and maybe how it came to be?
Sure. Who doesn't know Titanic? I think all of the kids will probably know Titanic, right? It's a famous shipwreck that sank in 1912 in its maiden voyage. It was named unsinkable because it had several compartments, about 12, and it could have 6 of them completely flooded before it sank. Unfortunately, it hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage, and it hit more than the 6 compartments, and it sank. And it became lost for many, many, many years until it was found in 1985 by a French-US team. And it's been now found for, it's been 100 years now that since it sank. And it's created a lot of attention from everybody to find out what happened and how it sank, and you know, what's left in terms of the longevity of the ship. I got involved with Titanic because when I was your age, I was already diving at night at 12, and I liked shipwrecks. And somehow this particular shipwreck attracted my eye, and I wanted to go find it. When I was interested in it, it had not been found, and I wanted to be the one to find it. So I went to my dad and I told him I want to find Titanic. I enrolled to go to Woods Hole in college. And unfortunately, they found it right as I was in school. And my dream was completely collapsed. And I changed my career, and I decided to change a career to finance, which maybe was a mistake because I'm still obsessed about Titanic. So any of you kids who has a dream to do something that seems impossible, please don't give up. Continue on that road, because I should have done it. I looked to go on an expedition after they found it for years and years and years, connecting myself to every person I know that is connected to Titanic. I would go and introduce myself, tell them I wanted to go on the expedition, that I wanted to find out more about it. I read every book that I could. I saw every movie that I could. And now I'm going on an expedition to Titanic.
So that's pretty amazing. You obviously won't be able to dive the way that you normally do. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're going to get so deep?
Correct. Titanic is about 4 kilometers deep, 12,500 feet for those who don't measure in meters. It's very deep. It's so deep that we in our bodies cannot really survive in that pressure. Our bodies tend to be made out of water, and everything that goes that deep, the pressure just makes you really, really, really small. So we are protected by a submarine. There's not too many submarines that go down that deep. There's maybe 5 in the world. And I'm going with a company that's making the first private submersible that is not owned by a government that can go that deep. And I can probably show you a picture of it if I can share it with the kids.
Sure.
Let me see, share. Hold on, kids, I'll show you the submarine. So that's a picture of the submarine. As you can see, it's very small. It fits about 5 people. And it's really a cylinder, as you can see from these pictures. It's a cylinder that is covered by carbon fiber, and they make it look pretty for on the outside. So it looks very inviting for everybody, but the submarine can sustain the pressure, and whoever is inside is basically like on an airplane. You're in a 1 atmosphere is what we call it. It's you don't feel the pressure yourself. The pressure is being held by the submarine, and you have that huge window in the front that allows you to view Titanic. And you have the submarine will have arms that will make collection of water and specimens on the wreck. And we're also going to be taking pictures, which will allow us to make a map and compare it to previous maps that have been made.
All right. And I'm excited because we're going to follow along a little bit and connect with you as May gets closer, and maybe we'll even be able to do something else as things get closer. So definitely for the classrooms who are taking part, keep an eye on the newsletters for updates, and we'll see how we're able to take part in this expedition as well. So you must be so excited. This is years and probably even decades of passion and excitement, and the buildup must be just incredible to know that this May you have this on the horizon.
It is. It's amazing. I still don't believe it myself. I've been looking to do this since I'm very, very young. That just proves that you cannot really give up on a dream. It really doesn't matter how many years go by. If you are persistent and adamant and study hard, you're able to make your dreams come true. Mine is soon to be, and I still don't know what I expect to see or expect to find, but I hope that with the expeditions, my obsession with it get some questions are answered.
All right. Well, I think it's time that we meet some of the classrooms, and
Ooh.
I'm sure they've got questions about diving, some of the places you've been, and your upcoming expedition. But before we do that, president of the New York Sea Gypsies, can you tell us a little bit about that?
The New York City Sea Gypsies is the largest diving club in New York City. You kids probably don't think that one can dive in New York City, but I live in an island that is surrounded by water and has a lot of shipwrecks from World War I and World War II. And we have a group of divers locally that goes diving every weekend here in New York, and that's called the New York City Sea Gypsies.
All right, very cool. Let's meet some of our classrooms now. So where should we start? Okay, let's meet Mrs. Schnexer's class, grade 3 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Let me turn your microphone on. You guys can go ahead with a question.
You want to come up? It's okay. All right, do you want to ask your question?
What's the largest fish you've ever seen?
A whale, a humpback whale. I don't know if you know what they look like, but it's not the largest fish in the water, but it's about the size of a bus. And it has very long arms that are white. And they're very curious, and they do get close, and they're very big.
All right, awesome question. So what we're gonna do, because we have a big group of classrooms, is we'll swing through each classroom once, and then we'll do another round of questions for the classrooms who still have questions. So let's see, let's go to San Antonio, Texas this time. Mrs. Akel's grade 5 class. Let me turn your microphone on.
What part of Titanic are you most interested in seeing?
That's a very good question. All of it, not one particular area. I want to see all of it.
All right, well, that's a pretty good answer, but do you know, I'm just trying to think, you know, I'm thinking back to what I've seen on TV. Do you know what part you're going to descend on first, or is that too early to know?
It is too early to know. The plan is to descend on the bow if we can first, but it's really difficult to know. The debris field is very large, and it really depends on my turn in the submersible on the area that we have to explore.
Yeah. It would be pretty incredible, though, to see the bow, the front of the ship coming out of the darkness, 4 kilometers deep. That would be something.
Well, that definitely makes for the money shot, the movie shot that we would like to all see. But to be honest, I think I want to see the stern. The bow is very interesting, but the stern has more of the impact of the accident itself, and where a lot of deterioration has happened, that we can see how much has deteriorated. For those kids, the expedition I'm on is a scientific expedition. We're going to be making a 3D map of the expedition, and we're going to be part of the expedition itself. You are assigned to a team that either has you on communications or on science or on photography, and you help within the submersible and outside the submersible throughout the expedition.
All right. Let's see. Let's meet our next classroom. So we're going to go to Kingston, Ontario this time, grade 5-6 with Mrs. McLaughlin. I'll turn your microphone on for you. And there we go. Go ahead with the question.
How many expeditions have you been on?
I've been on, that's a good question. Let me actually name them. Not that many. I've been expedition co-leader of the Sedna expedition in 2016. I was on their expedition in 2014. I've been to Britannic, a submersible expedition to Britannic, a submersible expedition, which is the sister ship of Titanic, by the way, an expedition to the Andrea Doria on submersible, an expedition to the Andrea Doria diving. I've been on expeditions to Newfounland to record the shipwrecks that are out there. I think that's about it. So not that many.
Okay, so a lot of the diving that you do is for personal enjoyment as well.
Correct. We
Okay.
can call them expeditions, but they're not. They're really personal enjoyment expeditions.
Yeah. So the Andrea Doria, for the classrooms who may not know much about it, can you just give a brief little,
Description.
maybe a little intro of that wreck? And it's pretty neat. It's a wreck that's really deep that you can just reach, right, with technical diving.
Correct. The Andrea Doria, for those who are not familiar with it, was an Italian cruise ship liner that had people on board, and it was heading to New York, and it hit, because of fog, it hit another boat and it sank. And it sank with everything. Everybody was rescued, was rescued from the boat, so no person died, but everything sank with it. It's at 250 feet. It's reachable by people with scuba. It's very deep. You need some technical training for that, and many years of training. It's in a shipping lane, which means that it's very dark and it's very, there's a lot of current, so it's very dangerous dive as well. The people that have attempted to dive it they have had deaths. Not that I want to tell you guys that, but you have to be careful when you go that deep in scuba. It's 250 feet. That's about 100 and, it's about 70 meters, I think. And so it's deep, and it's very dark, and you don't have a lot of time. So the shipwreck is very, very, very large, and you don't get to see it all in one go if you're diving. And for, let's say, 20 minutes in the bottom, it takes you about 2 hours to come up to the surface because of something called decompression. You have to come up slowly when you dive that deep.
All right. Excellent. And you bring up a really good point. A lot of people get nervous when they think about scuba diving, but with proper training, and that's very important, it actually is a very, very relatively safe sport as long as you're doing the right training.
Correct. The important thing is when I was 12, I had, certain understanding of scuba diving, but with the proper training from instructors around the world, you can reach caves and deep dives and different destinations as well. And it makes you more comfortable in the water as well. So I tend to find it a very safe sport. A lot of people ask me if I'm claustrophobic. I am not claustrophobic. I actually think that going in the water is freedom, makes you breathe and be in a bigger world than being on the surface. So it's an awesome place to be able to breathe underwater. I feel it's a very safe place.
All right. Let's go to Hutchinson, Kansas now with some grade 4s with Mrs. Ediger. Let me turn your microphone on. There you go.
Oh, hi.
How old were you when you wanted to dive and explore the ocean?
10 years old. My father put me in the water when I was 11 years old. It's not really the age to get a certification, but with a parent that dives and an instructor, they can give you a discovery diving course. And then after that, you can get a certification as young as 12 years old. So you're able to explore the oceans that young.
All right. So grade 4s in Kansas. You might already be there or getting pretty close. So start thinking about those certifications. Amherst View, Ontario. We're going to visit Mr. Richard's grade 6-7 class. Let me turn the microphone on. There we go.
What's the longest you can be under the water?
That's a very good question. On scuba or with a submersible?
Scuba.
Okay, with scuba, it depends how much gas you have to breathe and how deep you go. So it really depends. You can be in the water 12 hours if you have enough breathing gas to breathe throughout those 12 hours.
Okay, but in general, for like a recreational diver, usually the deeper you go, the shorter your dive tends to be.
Correct. If you are with a single tank, it really depends how fast you breathe as well. A bigger person will probably last about 30 minutes. A person like me will probably last about an hour. With a single tank about 90 feet or 25 meters. If you go down to the Andrea Doria to 250 feet or 70 meters, it really becomes an issue of no more than 25, 30 minutes because you cannot carry enough tanks to really do your decompression.
Okay, and are you trained to dive rebreather?
I am not trained to dive rebreathers yet, but with a rebreather it does open the capacity of time, safety, and gas.
Yeah. Okay, so just very, very simply for classrooms who may not have heard of a rebreather, it's basically a system where you can go down and the air you're breathing can be scrubbed, have some of the carbon dioxide removed, and so you can stay down for longer periods of time with different systems. So it's pretty cool, but very technical and something you definitely have to train and know all your different tables and such.
Yeah, when you dive, you usually have a tank, and the bubbles that you exhale are your CO2. If you're on a rebreather, the same air that you're breathing in is the one that you're breathing out, and that CO2 doesn't escape, and it needs to be absorbed. And that's what you were saying. It goes in a scrubber, which is really like kitty litter. That's what it looks like. And when the air goes in, it absorbs the carbon dioxide, and it allows the good air for you to use to rebreathe it. And that's why it's called rebreather.
All right, so we haven't visited Mrs. Shell's group. There's some high school students in Ben Hur, Virginia at the Lee County Career and Technical Center. Let me turn your microphone on for a question. There we go.
Hi.
Here, I'll switch. What changes have you seen in the seafloor since you first began diving?
What was that?
Move a little closer here. There you go. What changes have you seen in the seafloor since you first began diving?
Oh, there's a lot of changes. Global climate change has definitely made an impact. The water is getting warmer, and the corals are dying. If you haven't seen a documentary called Chasing Coral, it really shows you the impact that we have created in our water. The corals are getting burned, so they lose their color. They become white. So that's one impact. The other impact is that we have less fish. We have less sharks. We have less fish. We keep taking them out and eating them. And some of them, we need them in order to protect the ecosystem. So there's definitely some human impact on the oceans.
All right, that's a great question. And I can remember hearing a statistic the other day that we have enough fishing fleet capability to fish a planet 3 times our size. So it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, and not surprising that we're losing so many species. Their numbers are falling and falling.
Yep.
All right, so our final group who we haven't visited yet is joining us from Brampton, Ontario, grades 6 to 8 with Mrs. Hastings Speck. And you'll have to turn the mic on for me and go ahead with the question.
How do you like what do you like about diving? Love most. Love most. You guys say
I can't hear you. What do I like most
about diving? What do you love most about diving?
The silence. The serenity of being underwater in an open space with so many animals, and you can actually breathe. It's fantastic. It's like being out of this world.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I've been diving for 10 years now, and my favorite thing is you're just surrounded by life depending on where you are, especially if you're on a reef. And if you go for a walk somewhere like the forest, everything runs away, or you just catch glimpses of it. But when you're underwater, you get to spend time with so many amazing different sea creatures, and it's It's a pretty awesome experience.
And you can actually float like you're an astronaut in space.
Yep. All right, well, that's a great round of questions from the classes joining in so far. So what I think I'll do is we'll swing through each classroom one more time. You guys can let me know if you have another question for Renata. So let's start right at the beginning again. Let's go back to Virginia Beach with Mrs. Schnexer's group.
There you go. Are you ready? You're going to come over here and talk really loud. There you go.
Where do you want to go besides the Titanic?
Space. I want to go to space if I can go anywhere else. The Titanic has really been my dream, and a lot of people say, what am I going to do after Titanic? And it's probably go back to Titanic. I love it that much.
Have you ever been to the lab, the Aquarius lab reef base off the coast of the Florida Keys?
Yes, I have. I'm actually an aquanaut myself. I have a certification as an aquanaut. I spend 24 hours on the water.
All right, so for the students who don't know, off the Florida Keys, there's a reef base about 60 or so feet down. It's called the Aquarius Reef Base. It's the only underwater laboratory in the world, and they often call it the inner space station because astronauts from NASA and the European Space Agency will go there to train and experience working in a weightless environment. So that's very neat. I didn't know you were an official aquanaut as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to San Antonio. Mrs. Akel's class, your microphone's on.
Have you ever had a problem when you were diving?
I've had, but if you're well prepared and well trained, there's no reason to be concerned. Sometimes equipment fails underwater, and if you're calm and you are trained, as I repeated, you can correct it and get out safely.
Yeah, and I think another really important thing to add about diving is it's always important to follow the buddy system. So you have your buddy close by, and they can always help out if something does go wrong.
Correct. And remain calm.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Okay. Mrs. McLaughlin's class, I think you're up next. Let me turn your microphone on. Just off. There we go.
When you first started diving, were you scared?
No, not at all. I wanted to be underwater. I never felt fear for water at all. I can understand that some people are fearful of it, but if you try it once and you can breathe underwater, you'll like it.
I agree with that 100%. I still remember my first dives, and it was such an exciting feeling to be so deep underwater and able to breathe and stay down there. It's pretty special.
You can talk to the fish.
That's right. Mrs. Edgar's class, let's turn your microphone on.
Do we have one?
Do you guys have another question? No pressure.
We do. She's coming.
All right.
Hi.
How do you communicate with the sea animals and people if you are in trouble?
How do I communicate with the sea animals?
Yeah.
Or people if you're in trouble.
Well, with people, you have your buddy close by, so and hopefully others. If not with your buddy, you can communicate by signals like this is okay. You know, I'm low on air. You can hit your chest. I'm out of air. You know, we have a whole book of signs that we can give our buddy in order to communicate that you're in trouble. The other one is to just go into the buddy and literally grabbing him and telling him what your trouble is. We also have a sign that is this. It's the sign of so-so that indicates that you're having a problem. So, so that's how you communicate. We actually can communicate by not even seeing each other too. We have touch communication, and we have signs for touch communication as well. That's how we even communicate in caves.
All right, and I definitely know one of my favorite signs. It's always a good dive when somebody does this, which means there's a shark. And I always love to be in the water on dives with sharks. It's always a special experience.
Yes.
All right, great question. Mr. Richards' class, let's get your microphone turned on.
How big of sea animals are in the ocean besides sharks and fish?
How big are they? Or well, the whales are very big. They're the size of a bus or two buses. They're huge. The whales are the biggest ones that I've seen. So they're bigger than a shark.
Have you ever, maybe not in the water, but from a boat, seen a blue whale?
No, I have never seen a blue whale. I snorkel with whale sharks. I don't know if everybody knows what a whale shark is. Anybody can really do that because you snorkel with them. They don't have teeth either. So they eat plankton, and they gather in Mexico every year in August to eat the plankton in the water. And those fish could be as big as a bus, or could be as small as a car. And they move very graciously in the water, and you can actually get very close to them.
All right. Let's visit our high school group in Virginia. Do you guys have another question?
Oh, yes. Yes. If I were to want to go to college to be a diver, what would I major in and what courses would I take?
Well, you can be a diver without necessarily going to college. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but you can be a diver now. You're not necessarily in college. If you pick any of the sciences, the oceanographic sciences, then I would probably start with marine biology or just plain biology, and then kind of pick what you like from there. You could do archaeology, you can do scientific research, you can do corals, you can do animals, any of the animals. So that's a good place to start. I would start with just taking a scuba class, and you don't have to be in college to do that.
Yeah, and those are definitely some good careers that you listed. And then there's also other opportunities, maybe diving with the Navy, or technical diving, like on oil rigs and such. So there are some people who can make careers from diving as well. So it is a pretty open sport. So you can do it for sport, or you can do it for work as well. Okay, I think our class in Brampton, Mrs. Hastings-Speck, if you want to turn the microphone on one more time, if you guys have another question. Oh, I see someone coming up.
Do you like to dive alone with a team? Or with a team?
I like to do a team. You can talk to them underwater. You can compare notes when you come up. What did you see? What did you like? And it's also for safety. It's better to have a companion who can lend a hand in case you need help.
All right, great question. And Mr. Richards, I don't think I've visited your classroom again, so let me turn your microphone on.
Oh, Kaylee. Oh. Wrong one. Yeah, okay, Kaylee, yeah, go ahead.
What was the best thing that you ever saw while diving?
The whale, definitely the whale. Seeing such a big animal on the water, being so gentle and so aware of the presence of humans. It was moving towards us, and it was literally moving its arms to avoid hitting us. Because they're so big, they know exactly where you are. And it was very graceful. It was a connection that you don't have all the time, and it was magnificent.
All right. Well, once again, classrooms who are joining us today, if your teachers do take some pictures, please do share them on Twitter, because we'd love to see you guys in action from your end. And Renata, you're preparing for this expedition in 2018. What stage are you at now? What comes next?
Well, the submersible has just been built. It's in Seattle, Washington, and there's going to start testing it in the waters of Washington and California. I'm actually going to be going down in April. Maybe I can invite you all guys to come with me for an hour or two and show you the submersible that is actually going to go down to Titanic, and have you talk to a submersible pilot and maybe a few of the scientists. And that's the next step to test the sub.
All right. Well, we definitely look forward to that, and yeah, following along as the journey gets closer. Just before we do sign off, you're joining us again tomorrow for another hangout, which we're very much looking forward to, a Spanish language hangout. So if anybody wants to tune into that afterwards, it will be up on YouTube. And yeah, I want to thank our classrooms for hanging out today. You guys had great questions. It's always great to see such a big group of students interested in diving in our oceans. And Renata, I can't wait for tomorrow's hangout and to follow along as it gets closer to May.
Yeah, I cannot wait either to be able to tell all of you guys about it.
All right. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully some classrooms can join in with us later. But for now, what we like to do when we end a hangout is turn on all the microphones and give the students a chance to be nice and loud and say goodbye and thank you before we sign off today.
Let me take a picture. I want to take a picture of all of you. So you got to go like this, okay, kids?
All right. So you heard that, boys and girls. Wave like crazy. I'm turning the microphones on. Here we go. All right, Renata, as you can tell, that's definitely a favorite part of the hangout, and I hope you were able to get a couple pictures. Until next time, thanks everybody for hanging out, and Renata, we'll see you again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much to all of you. Hopefully I can show you a lot more video and pictures next time. Bye.